Minister Ricky Sellers from the Agape Community Christian Church once again. Um, we started on the first part of Exodus, and unfortunately, we might have to do three different sections of Exodus because it's kind of long and some information that I like to put out to you guys. So, without wasting too much time, let's get started. So, we left off with the people of Israel leaving, the oppression of Egypt. They left Egypt, they was free from the oppression of Pharaoh and the Egyptians. The Egyptians that chased them after the split it open Red Sea, they perished because God had the sea close back up. And, the guys that was chasing the people of Israel died. The Egyptians died. So, where do we go from there? What happened after the Israelites, you know, fled Egypt? That's a question I'm sure a lot of people want to know. Well, that's what we're going to get into today. So let's get started. Once the people of Israel fled Egypt, they celebrated. There was a song and dance, all kind of singing and stuff going on. And Moses himself made up a nice little long song about how it was amazing and how wonderful it was for them to flee Egypt. After Moses sang his song, excuse me, y'all, I'm sorry. After Moses sang his song, Miriam, his wife, she sang a song too. They was Aaron's sister, I'm sorry. But she sang a song too, and they was all happy, and not Moses' wife. But anyway, they was all happy, and they was singing, and they was excited, and they was happy because they finally flee the oppression of the Egyptians. I don't even think I can articulate how excited and ecstatic they were coming from such a dramatic situation. So after the celebration, they traveled into a place called the Wilderness of Shur, Shur, the Wilderness of Shur. So while they was traveling to this place called the Wilderness of Shur, they was noticing, hey man, we getting pretty thirsty. Moses, what's up? You done got us out here. We left the Egyptians. We're free from them now, and we're in this place. We thirsty, and we've been walking without no drink. You brought us from the Egyptians. Did you bring us out here to die? You crazy thing. They just got saved from the Egyptians, and they already complaining and talking about, well, if I was back with the Egyptians, at least they would have had food and water for us to drink. And you know what I mean? They just complaining. So what Moses did, he prayed to God. And God told Moses to take this tree and push it into this water. And they couldn't drink these waters because they were considered bitter waters at that time. But when he pushed this tree into the waters, the Bible said the waters became sweet. So I'm assuming the waters became drinkable because of the miracle of what happened when he pushed the tree into the water. And I'm sure it was like a small tree, but he pushed it in the water, and the water was drinkable, and everybody was drinking their fill of the water. After everybody had their fill of the water, they went on and they kept on traveling, because after the Exodus, or after they exited Egypt and left, they were going to what God would say a promised land, a land flowing with milk and honey. That's where they were traveling to. Well, when they kept going into their travels, they met in the middle of these two lands. They stopped in the middle of these two lands. One land was called Elam, and the other one was called Sinai. They was like right in between those two lands. And in between those two lands, they started complaining about food. Moses, we ain't got no food now. What are we gonna do? We ain't got no food and we hungry. You want you to take us out of Egypt to die? At least with the Egyptians, we can get our own food and water. They started complaining again, after their exile. Ain't that crazy? So Moses prayed to God, and God sent manna from the sky. And manna, the best way to explain it is like bread coming from the sky. My church, we describe it as something like angel food cake, but little bits of bread just coming from the sky. It wasn't angel food cake. It was called manna, and it was bread that God sent from the sky for them to eat. And really what happens is when the dew left from the morning, what was left was that bread. And they took the bread and they ate it, and everybody had their fill. As far as meat was concerned, they ate quail. God allowed quail to be accessible to them so they can cook or boil it or what have you. And they had bread, meat, and then water, and so they was fed. So after they had their food and stuff, thanking God and whatever, they kept on going and they traveling, and they ended up. Their next travel destination was this place called the Wilderness of Sin, where they complained about water again. Moses, we are out of water. We thirsty. We've been traveling all this time. Where the water at? What you want us to die? And Moses prayed to God, and God allowed Moses to hit this rock. He said, "You strike this rock with your staff, and water will flow through it." So Moses struck the rock, and then there was water, drinkable, accessible water for them to drink from the rock. So they was fine for a little while, right? So after they had their water, they went on to travel again, and then they were attacked by the group of people called the Amal the Amalekites. There we go. I have our trouble saying that word. They were attacked by this group of people called the Amalekites. So they had to defend themselves. So while the Amalekites was fighting them and they was fighting the Amalekites, Moses actually went up on this rock or a huge hill, and he took the staff that God gave me. I remember that staff. Through the staff, it turned into the stake. The same staff he used to split the Red Sea and perform all God miracles. He had that staff with him, and when he lifted his hands up in the sky, the people of Israel, the Israelites, were able to overcome the Amalekites. You know what I mean? They were able to, but when his hands came down, the Amalekites were gonna be able to overcome the Israelites. So to help remedy that problem, they got a big stone so Moses could sit on, and he had two men to help hold his hands up. And while the men kept holding his hands up and he kept fighting, the Israelites, which was led by Joshua, by the way. Joshua helped lead the Israelites in the victory over the Amalekites. And when Moses kept his hands up until they obtained victory over the Amalekites. And people of Israel, was still in their travels, and then he ended up being able to meet with his father-in-law by the name of Jethro. I remember Jethro. He's the father of his wife. When he met with Jethro, and Jethro saw that Moses had all these people following him. All these people was following him, and all the people that was following him came to him and only him for answers to whatever problems they was going in. Personal problems, moral problems, food problems. I got this thing on my neck. Moses, what you think we should do about it type deal. And Moses sat there and he handled everybody's problems. But you got to think about it. The people of Israel was a huge number of people. This wasn't a small number of people that was free from the Egyptians. This was a very large number of people. Don't forget, the reason why the Egyptians oppressed them because they was a large number of people. But anyway, he judged all these people by himself. So his father-in-law Jethro was like, "Look, Moses, I'm gonna just tell you right now, you keep going this way, you're going to kill yourself and you're going to stress these people out too because you can't handle all this. What you need to do is delegate leaders over certain groups of people and set it up like that." So, Moses took his advice, and he had leaders over thousands of these people, and then he had leaders over 500, groups of 500 of these people. And then he had leaders over, 50 of these people, and then he had leaders over 10 of these people. And, the little squabbles that they had in the groups, they went to those leaders. But the big squabbles that they had in the groups, that's when they went to Moses, and that made Moses' job much, much easier on him. Well, while Moses was up there, they actually journeyed even all the way back to the mountain of Sinai where he met God. And the first time we met God in the burning bush and whatnot, and you know, that mountain, was he went up there, and that's when he communed with God. It was sometimes he was up there in that mountain, it was said he was up there 40 days and 40 nights, but he communed with God a lot up there in that mountain. And in that mountain is where God and Moses, talked a lot, and God decided what he wanted to prepare his people for him to, pretty much live among them. So in that mountain, he gave Moses the Ten Commandments. And the first time he gave Moses the Ten Commandments, he actually didn't write it on stone. Had Moses document the Ten Commandments. So the thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not covet your neighbor's this, and thou shalt not kill, and thou shalt not commit adultery. Moses had all that information, and he went and shared that information to all the people of Israel. After he shared all that information to the people of Israel as far as the Ten Commandments, it didn't just stop at the Ten Commandments. There were more rules and regulations, because now that God's deciding to actually live and chill with his people, it's a whole bunch of rules and stuff that everybody had to abide by. He was pretty much setting the people of Israel in order, because while they were slaves, they didn't really have their own rules. They didn't have their own government. They didn't have their own nothing. So Moses, by communing with God, set up all that. So there was a order for which you know you control your animals. So if your goat killed somebody else's goat, there was a rule for that, and there was an order for that. It was an order for which you controlled your property, your slaves. If you had slaves, there's an order of which you controlled your slaves. An order of which you go about violence. See, back in the Bible days, if you got into a fight with somebody and you beat that person up, you're responsible for that person's recovery. So you had to pay for that person to get back well. That's very interesting. They had order of principles. They had justice. Orders for justice. They had an order for Sabbath, the Sabbath day, and they had three specific feasts that they kept into their traditions. The three annual feasts. One of them was the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So don't forget where they came from. The other was the Feast of the Harvest, and the last feast was the Feast of the Ingathering. So those are the three feasts that was part of their tradition and everything. Not along with let alone with the Sabbath and the Passover that you wanted to remember. And they took the Sabbath very seriously. Nobody was to work on the Sabbath. Nobody was to work. And lastly, after this, we've made it from chapter 14 to 28 of the book of Exodus. There's 40 chapters in there. So we're going to stop right here. And at this point, they're actually getting ready to build the Ark of the Covenant, preparing themselves for God actually living with them. And we're going to talk about the specifications, what the ark may look like, what the priests had to wear, and what they had to go through to have God live with them. But that'll be in the third segment, in the final segment of the book of Exodus. And we're going to talk about the Ten Commandments actually being written and set in stone, because it's spoken first and then set in stone. But other than that, man, I hope you guys like it. Questions, comments, and concerns, please contact me, inbox me. I'd love to talk with you. Hope this is edifying for you guys. This is Minister Ricky Sellers, Agape Community Christian Church. God bless. Peace.